Hello and welcome in everyone. Bills Talk, the post day one of the NFL Draft Edition. That's right, 2 days in a row you get to hear and see us. Lucky you, Lawrence Foster alongside Dr. Dungan. Round one's in the books. What's your initial thoughts?
The Jags are stupid. Um, I cannot believe how much they gave up to get Travis Hunter. I think they're quoted in saying he will change the NFL or something along those lines. Um, I don't believe so. I believe that he's going to be great at one of those positions, but to give up next year's first round pick, for which they're likely going to have a high, whatever's worse, pick,
Mm,
and their second round pick this year, just to move up three spots to get Travis Hunter, for which ultimately he's not going to be able to, like, he can't be a full time starter both ways. Like, it's just, you know, Booger McFarland said the game is slower, certainly, but the players are faster and they're stronger and they're more physical. And so I don't know, to me, that was such a head scratcher for like everything that the Jags need. Um, yeah, that was my one big, just, within the first 15 minutes of the draft, like,
yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah, the players were kind of what everybody thought it was going to be, just not the exact order of that.
Sure.
It's a first time general manager who maybe the moment got the better of him. He saw something like, ooh, let's make a splash.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like, right?
So I watched Draft Day today, or it kind of reminded me of that, where Kevin Costner's character takes advantage of a young general manager in Houston to get some picks that he shouldn't have. But this is a Bills show. We're going to get jumping in with the Bills. Uh, Brandon Bean surprisingly sat still. He seems like an anxious type on draft days, moving up, moving down, moving around. Stayed put and ended up being able to get Maxwell Hairston, somebody who everyone has been pretty much mocking in the first round. He was there at the draft, so obviously he was expected to go in the first. But the Bills get a corner to pair with Benford. So, what are your thoughts there on Maxwell Hairston?
Well, if anyone had watched our previous show, they know how much I wanted Maxwell Harrison at 30. But in our mock, the Commanders had taken him from underneath my feet, but not this time. Now, the, the football gods, they knew what they were doing, and now I'm really happy with it. Of all the players available, I mean, I would have been fine if we had taken Will Johnson. Most people have said like the fact that he's falling means that his medical probably isn't all that good, which
Mhm.
sucks for him. I mean, he'll still get taken. He'll get taken tomorrow, certainly. But no, was really happy with the guy. I'm with you. I think it's nice to have somebody with that like elite speed. It's because it's one, something that we just don't have. But he was really productive in the SEC. They said his one weakness is that he didn't, it wasn't great in run support. That's likely due to he is a little bit of a smaller frame, but overall, just as a pure cover corner, I think it's a great pick for us.
And we had talked on yesterday's show about the Bills not having to be forced to draft a corner. I don't feel this was a force.
Nope.
The way the draft fell, like all the defensive tackles they would have taken were off the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other possibilities like Mike Green, Donovan Azaruka, but those are ones that they're now in round two. They're kind of showing, hey, they weren't first round talents. So the board fell to where the Bills could take what they must have thought was the best corner on the board.
Certainly.
And now we talked about yesterday about raising the floor of the cornerback. So now his potential, his ability raises that cornerback to floor a ton. There's no pressure on him, but there's also no pressure. Like Trey isn't going to be forced in there if he's not what he used to be.
Yep.
There's depth now where if we have an injury, we're not completely thrown under a bus like the AFC Championship last year when Benford got hurt
Mm-hmm.
and the wheels fell off. So the draft fell really well. Bain did a good job of not forcing something that didn't have to happen. And they still have two 2 picks in round 2 to maneuver around and maybe get one of these guys, the defensive ends we might have gotten in the first round.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, I think for us, it could have gone, or it couldn't have gone really any better, because now tomorrow with our 2 picks, I know they're a little bit later in the day, so I still think we have to move up to get one of those defensive ends that you had mentioned. But I really like how it has shook out, because we don't have to necessarily do something crazy to get an impact player. Yeah, I think this went as good as it could have. Plus, there's still those 2 quarterbacks that are on the board that'll likely go tomorrow. Just the other running backs from Ohio State, that safety from South Carolina.
Yeah, him falling to the second was a big surprise.
Yeah, and so there's still quite a few players that we wouldn't want that other teams will. So hopefully it allows us to not have to move up too much to get some of those guys that we had mentioned.
Yep, and just the way it fell, and there's a lot of surprises. We'll talk about the rest of the NFL overall, but just there was not a lot of movement then at the bottom of the first round. Like you started seeing the clock go down to 0. Like that's how many calls are being made at the bottom of the first. People that probably didn't see falling where they did. Like Emeka Buka going before Matthew Golden, those types of things. Jackson Dart being the second quarterback taken a month ago. Nobody saw that coming. So, but Maxwell Harrison is a Buffalo Bill. His energy, very apparent. He's interviewed a couple times on a show called Moving the Chains on NFL radio. And I really liked his personality. He talked about he could have went and played Big 12 schools, but he wanted to stay at Kentucky. He wanted to play at Kentucky to play against SEC opponents. So you like that he has that competitive side of it. He could have went and played lesser opponents and looked better on tape, but he wanted to challenge himself. Thankfully, he has a good vertical. He is on the smaller side, as you mentioned, with his tackling ability. But his explosive numbers hopefully can make up for that in terms of maybe jump ball situations or 50-50s like that.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 months ago, when we started looking at draft stuff, he was a name you and I had talked about from the get-go. And as your wife mentioned, let's just hope he's better than Elam. That's a very low bar to have to clear.
I mean, that's low of a bar.
But yes, please let him be better than Elam.
Don't be a healthy scratch. That's your goal.
Yeah. So with that said, you mentioned how the Bills do have 2 later in the second round picks. What is your outlook on day 2 tomorrow with rounds 2 and 3?
So if we could get one of 4 players, Green, Abuka, Amos, or that corner from the one that was injured.
Ravel.
Yeah. If we could get one of those 4 players, I think it'd be great. Obviously defensive end is a little bit more of a pressing need now, but I just love having good depth at DB, because best case, both of them pan out and, we have a replacement for Trey and Taryn. Not worst case, but the next best thing is that one of them pans out, right? And so I don't think you can have enough good corners. So if we're able to take one of those guys, and then I would like us to take a receiver, get a guy that we really don't have, take one of these guys with 4.3 speed, somebody who can take the top off. 2 guys that come to mind that might be available is Trey Harris. He's from Ole Miss, and the Florida receiver, Dyke Shimmerin, something like that.
And that's your team.
Yeah.
So
both of those guys have, track type speed. They have something that the Bills really don't have, especially that Trey Harris guy. From what I read, he does a lot of really good things with the ball in his hands. So yeah, if we could get a defensive end and or corner, and then take a receiver with our 62nd pick, I think that'd be really nice. Day 2.
Yep. And again, I think it's a case where the Bills don't really have to force much of anything. We talked about their biggest hole being cornerback two, which is now at least filled. They could double dip, and like you said, hopefully one of them pans out. I always think when I think of double dipping, I always think of the Commanders, well, Redskins at the time,
Right.
when they took RG3 and then they took Kirk Cousins in the same draft. Like if it's a best player on the board, regardless of who you have on your team, sometimes you just take that guy, and you never know how the NFL is going to pan out, injuries or other things like that. So, and then like if Bills could get Will Johnson, who if his slide continues down the board,
Mm-hmm.
imagine like giving him a year to like maybe just get his body right, and then we end up with essentially a free first round pick the following year. So that type of stuff can happen. You feel bad for a player like that, like, kind of like Jihad Campbell there at the end. Um, all the injuries he went through is why he fell. But sometimes falling is better. Like he ended up on an Eagles team that is just loaded. He's going to be a piece in a big cog there, just like Will Johnson. If he fell to us, great spot for him.
Yeah.
But some things I'd like to see the Bills do is there if there's a way for them to couple up maybe some fourth and fifth rounds to get back into the third because they have nothing in the third, that would be nice. Um, running back is a
That,
possibility,
that's how we could get a third round pick back.
and trading them to who?
I mean, shoot, right? I think honestly, there's a lot of teams that could use a solid running back. You think of teams, the Browns, right? Who's their running back? Jerome Ford?
Yeah, because Chubb's not it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, they're sort of the first one that comes to mind. I know.
Broncos still.
So I think there's a lot of potential for which, if we wanted to move up in the second, all right, well, do you say, hey, Browns, you have 2 second round picks. We'll take the 5th. You can have our 56th and James Cook. Listen, I hate going down this, like, because I feel like I've done it every single time. If I legitimately thought that Cook was not going to be a distraction, we were going to be able to resign him and keep him productive for the next 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't say another word about it. But I do not want to get to training camp and all of a sudden it's just a talking point. He's not practicing. He's holding out. We have him for 1 more year and he's gone. Then just rip the flipping Band-Aid off now. So that's why I keep bringing it up. I would love to keep him, but I just don't see long-term it happen.
Talk about trading for Cook. I'd like to be able to use one of their seconds, maybe get like a Jameson Williams. You talk about getting something the Bills don't have. His proven NFL speed. That's not a projection of what he could do. He is somebody who the last year and a half has proven that he is an explosive piece the Bills don't have. So, or
Yeah.
George Pickens, I would also be okay with the Bills trading for him.
I do not want George Pickens.
I know you don't like his attitude, but I'll
Christian
take
Watson, you mentioned earlier. I wouldn't mind.
Christian Watson. Yeah, the Packers, how many receivers do they have?
Yeah, that makes no sense to me. That makes 0 sense to why you would draft him.
Yeah,
Like they have
when they have their cornerback needs,
right?
mm-hmm.
Like I thought for sure it was going to be like a DB. Yeah, no, that makes no sense.
So, well, that'll bring us, since we're off that, the biggest story we talked about yesterday about at the end, like when we're just giving our overall NFL thoughts. We mentioned Sanders falling, so we were on it. SSBills talk on it, even though it's not Bills related. So, but he fell as many mock drafts the last day and a half started to show a trend of the NFL talent evaluators don't have him ranked as high as the normal people.
Mel Kiper, boy, that guy is just
he's fired up.
He's going after it.
So, thoughts on Sanders falling?
I mean, one, I'll give you the credit. You're the one who thought this was going to happen. I didn't. I honestly thought that a team was going to talk themselves into it. And, I had even said earlier, I thought 3 quarterbacks were going to go in the top 15 and 4 overall. Yeah, well, surprised I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, but no, I mean, I was honestly I'm still shocked that he wasn't drafted today. Like a team, again, you look at a team that just needs a quarterback. There's quite a few teams, early that either need a quarterback or will need a quarterback in the next couple of years. And so, especially given the fact that the Browns have 2 early second round picks,
Oh, he's going to the Browns.
I thought for sure. I did. I mean, when that trade came in with Kansas City, I'm like, oh, there's Cleveland taking Sanders. But no, they didn't. And so, because to me, I feel like if you're going to draft him tomorrow, if you're going to take him in the second round, especially if the Browns take him with the first or fourth pick, then it just shows you how much of an idiot they are. Because best case, you take him and he kills it. And you want to know what's cheaper? What's cheaper is having a quarterback with a 5th-year option. That's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the most sense. And so if you move up and give up a 5th-round pick or a 6th-round pick, whatever,
yeah,
to be able to take them and have that option, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
So, I was surprised that he fell this far just because, again, I thought a team was going to talk themselves into it. Now, frankly, I wouldn't want him on my team, right? The whole, the character issues, the ego, the attitude, to me, I don't know, just because the Bills culture is so anti that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
No, because I saw it yesterday, and it wasn't me. I kept reading mock drafts that didn't have them in the first. So to me, that was a red flag. Okay, this is these guys' last mock draft,
Mm-hmm.
so all that information was there. I'm like Nick Inamori, the safety out of South Carolina. I didn't see anywhere that he wasn't going to be a first round pick, and he falls out of the first round.
Yeah.
Will Johnson's, like you said, his medicals must be really bad. Because, like you said, if you're going to take Will Johnson in the second round, I would have taken him in the first, like you said, to get that extra year. So if he's going to waste a year health wise, you're wasting 1 out of the 4 you have instead of 1 out of the 5.
Yep.
So if he goes in the first 4 or 5 picks, again, that makes no sense. Move up and get him, especially with a medical. Essentially, it's like you could redshirt him and still get the 4 years you would have gotten as a second round pick.
Right.
But like the cornerback just falling down the board, period, was I think the biggest surprise to me. Like Jahdae Barron took a long time to get drafted. I thought he was going to be more towards the top 10.
Same.
So I don't know if that's a sign of like teams thought defensive tackle, there's a big fall off. So they went after that, or that just means the cornerback is that deep. We're like, all right, we can get him whenever. I don't know which case it is. But my love of the draft, we talked yesterday, Farmer is still there for the Bills to take in the second round, the D tackle out of Florida State. My draft crush is still there to be taken.
I mean, you might get your wish, buddy.
Yeah, and then he's going to be awesome, and I'm going to be the best.
Well, we got Harrison, so.
But if we're going quick round 1 winners, who do you think can put forth the best day 1 of the draft?
So I guess if I had to pick 3 teams in no order, and this isn't because they have multiple draft picks, I think that the Falcons did. I really like what they did going in and getting 2 of the premier edges in this draft. They identified a need and they went after it. So you talk about the double dipping. I think what they did was really smart. And if those guys pan out, then that weakness is going to become a strength in a hurry. I really like what the Giants did because Dart was my favorite quarterback in this draft. I think their defense is going to be phenomenal. And, their running back situation is pretty good. Neighbors showed that he can be the guy. They have, the ability tomorrow to, fill out a few places here and there. So I thought the Giants did a really nice job. And then lastly, we'll see what they do tomorrow. But I think the Browns, with just moving back 3 spots, accruing as much draft capital as they did, I think that was just a really smart move. They set themselves up really well tomorrow and even next year. especially if they don't take a quarterback. And then, they have the ability next year to potentially go and get Archie Manning if he comes out. So those are my 3 winners of today.
Yeah, the Browns moving back was a big winner for me. And everyone had them taking Hunter or like Carter. They got defensive line help, and they still have the potential to get a top defense. They could get Mike Green. They could get Izaruka. So they can still get that guy to pair with him. They get the extra picks, like you said, and they have a top line defensive tackle. So then look at that defensive line.
Yeah.
How you're building. The only thing that I don't get still and doesn't seem to fit, it seems like the Browns are starting to look towards the future. So the contract that gave Myles Garrett when he said he wanted to be traded, that's the only piece that doesn't like fit to me. Like you could have, if you're just going to be like, all right, we're going all in on the future here. Think about what you could have gotten for him. But draft wise winner, the Falcons, like you said, double dipping, they have a terrible pass rush. They tried getting Matt Judon last year. It did not work out. He fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So they get James Pierce, like he's a really definition of a boomer bust. Like he could be really good, or he could be like an Aaron Mabinish type thing. And like you said, Jalen Walker, I can't believe he fell as far as he did to be able to draft him.
15, right?
Yeah. So again, somebody they thought was top 10. And I like some of the teams that like New England, the Jets, they started to build through the trenches. The Patriots realized, hey, we got our rookie quarterback. Instead of a weapon, let's keep our guy upright and got the best tackle in the draft.
Sure.
That continues what they've done all offseason. They continue to be the best non-Bills team in the AFC East. So they continue their strength. And then the Jets were actually smart. They didn't push anything. They got more like keep drafting linemen until you find the right people.
Yeah.
Now, losers of the draft, I think the biggest one is the Jaguars, which
100%.
we've already talked about. Like they gave up way too much for somebody. Like you said, that if they're thinking he's going to be the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL, that's not how it works. Ohtani's not getting hit and having to tackle people.
Right.
That's my biggest loser is the Jaguars.
Yeah, no, and it's, as you were talking, I was trying to think of who else that might be the case. I wouldn't necessarily call the Cowboys losers. They definitely they drafted a player who filled a need. I just felt as though somebody like Matthew Golden may have just been a better fit. Isn't even the option or the word. I just felt as though there might have been a better play there. And then my other potential is who drafted that Michigan tight end.
The Bears.
The Bears. That was the one for which time will tell if they were a loser. I didn't think tight end was a real big need of the Bears. I thought there was spots on defense or that they could have used a player. And on top of it, most people had the Michigan tight end as the second best tight end in the draft. And so, again, time will tell if that was a smart move or not. But overall, because there wasn't a lot of trades and, frankly, there wasn't a ton of head scratchers. And
the Bears had Cole Kmet. It's not like.
Yeah. The Saints. I guess ultimately that was the one head scratcher for which they had they have a clear need at quarterback. Now I get it if you don't love either guy, right? But man, you really need somebody. Like who you have currently is Spencer Rattler, ain't it? Derek Carr is just, he's on the back end and he's just hurt. And so you don't really have anybody, right? And so I don't know. I guess, again, maybe all of these things will be answered tomorrow and these GMs will look like geniuses because they said, nope, we didn't have to draft him. We sat and we waited and we got him much later. That very well could be the case. Yeah, the first 5 to 8 picks tomorrow will be really interesting just because I do think Shedeur is going to go within the first top 10 picks tomorrow. And so who jockeys to get him? Who really wants him? That'll be interesting to see.
And then Milrow's still there.
Yeah, but I don't love Jalen Milroe. I mean,
No.
if you're at Alabama and you have the Alabama talent and you're just okay, sorry.
But yeah, and you talk about Kuiper. Kuiper was all over the Saints drafting, still saying
Oh
he
my
thinks he's the
God.
best fit for Sanders.
Dude, it's just like, listen, we get it. Okay. Just take it easy. And then, I mean, there's also the Louisville quarterback as well. I tell you, it would be really telling if he went
Right.
before.
And that's why I brought up Milrow, because I think there's a possibility where somebody takes him over Shador just because he has more of an upside leg wise
Yeah.
than Shador. So that would just be, that's why I brought him up, was like, think how crazy it would be if Milrow goes ahead of Shador Sanders.
I forgot that Milrow attended the draft. Whoever told him that was a good idea gave him bad information.
Oh, yeah, I wonder who didn't get drafted.
He probably watched my mock and was just like, oh, yeah, like Duncan says I'm going to go first round.
and he's a doctor. He knows what he's talking
Oh, my
about.
gosh, yeah.
But it was, I think it was a different type of exciting this year because you didn't know where a lot of people were going to go, what was going to happen.
Sure.
And the Bills made out well. I'm not angry. There's been so many years like after the first round, like, man, I'm fired up about what the Bills did in a bad way.
Yeah.
But I think one of the best things the NFL did before we close it out was now they have this break between 1 and 2. Teams have time to call other teams, set up deals, make moves. Whereas opposed to it used to be 1, 2, and 3 were all together. You don't have that. Once that 30-second pick was done, we're on to the next. So I like that they have this now where teams can do more wheeling and dealing. Maybe you'll see some veterans move tomorrow as part of package deals. So a lot of exciting stuff happening probably tonight, tomorrow, and heading into the top of round 2.
Yeah. No, it was a good time. I very much enjoyed it. And frankly, the fact that it went off without a hitch in a cold weather environment gives me hope that maybe one day, maybe in 2026 or 27, when the Bills' new stadium is done, we'll see a draft live from Buffalo, New York.
And I think the Bills are pushing for that. So
yeah.
But that closes out our post round 1. We appreciate the 5 of you hanging out here. That's our record high. So thank you, everybody, for stopping in on this, I guess, Friday morning for me, Thursday night still for people outside of the East Coast. But we will be back on tomorrow after day 2 of the draft, or after rounds 2 and 3. We'll be back on offering our instant analysis and hot takes as we do. To close out like we always do, we say, I'm Lawrence Foster and Dr. Dungan. We say,
Go Bills.
Bills.